Hi folks, it's Dr. E and I'm here with your week 3 instructional video for English 1301. I do want to apologize at the beginning for posting some materials and assignments for this week a little bit later than usual. I know I have a noon on Monday deadline to post these materials for you, but I often like to do so at just a bit earlier because I know some of you like to work ahead, but this week was just one of those weeks where I wasn't able to do so. So my apologies. I don't intend to make that a habit. Let's go ahead and jump into week 3. If we go to the table of contents on the left-hand side and scroll down to week 3, this is what you'll see. We do have a chapter reading this week from our book, from the chapter entitled Meeting the Expectations of Academic Writing. This really does add on to Irvin's text about the myths associated with academic writing and what academic writing actually is. So it's a really great read. Make sure you're taking some time with that. You are watching the instructional video, and you do have a Packback introductory video I'll get to in just a second. I do not have a written response video for this week because I felt like it would be not only too much in terms of videos, but also because we are going to ease into that assignment, and I didn't want to put heavy, very strict guidelines on it just yet. We want to ease into that, so I'll get that written response video for you later when we get a bit more strict with the assignment guidelines and points and whatnot. But you do have a written response assignment due Sunday, as well as a discussion post due Thursday, and then of course your participation quiz. So I want you to note that this looks like any other week in terms of we have a Thursday and Sunday deadline. We have the discussion on Thursday, responses to 2 colleagues, but we are adding the written response in addition. But you'll note that the points, show that the effort there is going to be worth your while. So if you scroll down, you're watching what will appear as number 1, and what I want you to do is make sure you're taking some time to walk through that Packback introductory video, which is very brief, but it's really good visual in terms of how to utilize that program. So some of you may be familiar, you may have used this in other courses. This is new to me, so we're working on this together if this is new to you. And I just wanted to put a little explanation here because I have in the past always done discussions through D2L, and I find that the functionality is very limited, especially when it comes to editing posts a lot of times. And in the past 2 weeks, I've gotten emails from y'all. You wanted to correct something slight or something you felt was major. But D2L does not allow you to go in and edit posts normally, which is frustrating because it should. And Packback will allow you to do this, as well as it will give you input regarding grammar and writing. So this really helps us focus our attention on what our writing habits are. We can see a real-time kind of update on that. And Packback also pushes us to think very critically about what it is that we're writing. So it's just really useful on all levels. Our schedule is the same, so don't worry about that, Thursdays and Sundays. You will have more information in this module here. So if you ever have Packback questions related to technology or anything, come here. There's information on how to contact Packback. They are so kind and patient. I have been working with them a lot lately to get on board with this. So please note that they are very responsive and they want to help. So I am not the person to go to if you have any tech questions related to Packback. They certainly are. There's also the start video if you want to review it, as well as some other quick links that may prove useful. So if you have questions, definitely start in this module to see if there are some answers for you. Okay. So if you scroll down, you'll see that the to-do list, don't let it be intimidating to you, it's okay. Here's our link for Packback. You can access it. I'll always put it in our weekly module, but you can also go to the module here and always click on it right there. Okay. I want to click here and show you what it looks like and where you'll go. You always want to access Packback via D2L. You don't need to go outside of it because it takes you straight to our class. You don't need to do anything. And this is what it looks like. Granted, this is my instructor view, but it looks very similar to what you'll see. So that's really nice because D2L does not always allow you to see what I see and vice versa. So you'll note that the next deadline is Sunday the 5th. And I want you to note, because of the way Packback works, I had to set it up so that Sunday becomes the main deadline. But you must note that Thursday is when your initial response is due, and then Sunday is when your responses to 2 colleagues are due. Okay, so make sure you're keeping that in mind, put it on your schedules, that kind of thing. All right, So you'll always see this ask a new question. That's where you'll begin when you read the assignment instructions. Okay, so you'll always have assignment instructions that will look pretty similar to this. So I put, your goal this week is to create one thoughtful, thought-provoking question based on our reading this week, that meeting the expectations of academic writing chapter. And I put, there are elements that are similar to the discussion board, but you get to drive the conversation this way. It can be really, I don't want to use the word boring, but maybe repetitive for me to have a prompt every week that you respond to. I get in a rut when it comes to creating those prompts. I think you get in a rut when it comes to responding to them, because sometimes I'm not asking you to write about things that really piqued your interest from the chapter, or I'm not asking you to think about things that are as interesting as something you want to think about or push about. So this gives you a bit of that control and freedom, which I think is I'm very excited about this aspect. So you're going to create a question, and then you have a description to provide some context about your inquiry. And I put, your question really needs to begin. So in D2L, we start with our names and pronouns in the subject line, but your question needs to begin with the week number. And I do have an example that you can look at. And that's really for my purposes in terms of organization. So that week number helps me organize grades and whatnot. So your initial question and description are due on Thursday, just as they have been. And then by Sunday, you'll need to respond to the questions of 2 colleagues. All right, I put here, the 48-hour grace period does not apply to discussion posts. That's not, that's information in the syllabus, right? But there will be times when slightly late submissions may be counted for partial credit. I try to be somewhat flexible and reasonable, but the 48 hours, that's just too far beyond the due date for us to have an active conversation. So slightly late submissions, I can think about more. Should you need to submit a bit late, send me an email, because it means I have to kind of go into Packback and reorganize the questions for grading. So just keep that in mind. And I really specify, your email does not mean, you never have to apologize or explain to me for why you may have submitted late. I will always assume that something's going on in your life or something has happened. I'm never going to assume the worst, and I never need you to give me details. That's your private information. If you want to share, that's fine, but there's no reason to apologize, because again, you're grown-ups, we're all grown-ups, and I am going to just assume right off the bat that if you submitted something beyond the due date, that there was a good reason for it. Okay. All right. So this is what the assignment will always look like. And then if you go back to discussion up here, that will take you back to our general area. If you scroll down, you'll see a question that I have posted, and this is just an example. And I'm going to mention here, do not respond to this question. This, again, is just an example. I want you to respond to one another. So make sure that you're keeping that in mind. So if you look at preview post, I'm just going to go to the full post. So you'll see that I started with the week number, and I put some question, a question here. How does your writing experience in school compare to the description of academic writing in the chapter? How does writing for school differ from other kinds of writing? And then you'll note that there is space below for me to offer a description. This is where you explain, you show what you know from the chapter, but you also explain the reasoning behind your question. So I put, we engage in writing more often than we believe. We text, we post social media. In this week's reading, Lunsford, I'm giving credit, identifies the expectation of academic writing and outlines different ideas. Let's think about how the ideas Lunsford shares. So I'm really setting up this kind of question for you. And I put part of this is showing what you know. So you will want to offer a nice detailed description of the question. And I want you to note that I've also included a video of our actual text editor, Andrea Lunsford, who's very well known in the writing community, rhetoric and composition, just because it's a nice little addition. It's a very short video and it adds to the conversation. So you are welcome to do that. So I'm going to click back and note that if you wanted to add a response, so I'm going to, again, do not respond to mine, but you can add a response by clicking here. And when you go to respond to your colleagues, this is what it will look like. You'll summarize your perspective and your thesis. So what's your overall idea in terms of responding to this question? So you'll see that the question is stated up here, and then you'll defend your response. Okay, and this is not about arguing with one another or judging one another's question. This is truly about the ideas from our text. Cite your source. That's generally just, you can put our text title. And then on the right-hand side, you'll note that there's curiosity, credibility, communication, and convention. You'll see you'll see little amounts here in these circular areas for, are you pushing curiosity? Do you need to push credibility more? Your grade is based on this. So if you notice that convention is low, and really curiosity is the important one, you'll need to go back and add more detail, add more information, push your ideas a bit more to get the best possible grade. So you have kind of a running view of what your grade is likely to be on the right-hand side. Then you'll click post, okay? All right, so that's responding to one another, but the first thing you want to do is ask a question. So remember, don't respond to mine. You'll click ask a new question, and then you'll see you'll have a limit here for the actual question, and you'll want to put the week number, right? And then ask here. And it will urge you, you need a question. It will let you know if your question is open-ended. And again, once you start typing your description based on your knowledge of our reading, you'll see these kind of ads. So I'm gonna okay, so it will start. It's not doing it for me right now, but you can also, I'm sorry, once you post it, I'm not going to post this because I don't want it to confuse y'all. Once you post it, you can go in and click options and then edit. Some of these options are just for instructor view, some of them are not, so you can play around. And like I said, this is, please click back and forth, play around a little bit, just make sure you're getting your work in on time. And you'll note that we're still in D2L, so you can click back to week 3. And then you'll note that we do have a written reflection. That's a written response. I'm actually going to retitle that. I don't want it to be confusing because we do have writing reflections. So we'll move into the formal written responses later and have that set rubric and a video. But for now, I just want to think about ourselves as writers. So go back to thinking about Irvin's What is Academic Writing, those myths, remember? The myth associated with the perfect first draft or good grammar is good writing, that kind of thing. So really think about where we learned some of those myths. We wrote about it a little bit last week, but in 2 to 3 paragraphs, I want you to share your writing history with me, and it's explaining you as a writer. Everyone's will be different. If you need ideas about where to start, and this is just optional. If you see create a writing history and you already have ideas, don't worry about answering any of these questions. These are just to get you started. So what experiences with writing do you carry with you, whether those are good or bad? Some of us remember a very detailed good experience or a very detailed bad experience, or just kind of how did our narrative of ourselves as good or bad or in between writers kind of develop? What's your earliest writing memory? Was it great, not so great? Where do you think you learned some of the writing myths Irvin identifies? So you want your submission, again, 2 to 3 paragraphs, but it needs to follow this basic MLA guidelines. I'm not pushing for, citations at this point. We're excited, any of that kind of stuff. But we need to have 12-point font, Times New Roman, double spaced. And the way to do that is just use the template. I urge students to use this every semester. And every semester, there are students who do not. And this is really the first impression that anybody has of your writing. So when they open this document, they're going to first see, is everything formatted properly? So you just replace your information here, okay? You click up here, double click so that you can access this, change your last name, double click outside of it. Do not ever manually enter your last name and page number for the header. Just don't. You can do, a written response, and then you just start typing here. Just delete this and start typing. Save it. Don't save it as basic MLA template. Save it as some other title so you don't incorrectly upload the wrong document, which happens. Please avoid that. Hold on one sec. Then you'll click upload and you just go find it on your computer titled what you saved it as, not as basic MLO template. And then once you have it uploaded, you can click submit and it will send you a confirmation in D2L if you've submitted your document. Then you have your quiz. So that's this week. Hope y'all are staying dry, staying warm.